You may remember Dan Morgan as somebody that was in the front office already.
Hey, I thought it was all over.
Yep, David Tepper hired a Scott Fitterer protege, I guess. I'm not sure. This is 99 The Fan, though. I love the crap out of them. I just want to hear his opinion. We're going to kind of go from there. I'm not going to go too crazy. Everybody kind of knows my thoughts on it. So,
The Drive with Tim Donnelly, 99.9 The Fan. This is a special overtime edition of The Drive. Overdrive edition of The Drive, because today is Monday, January 22nd, and with 2.5.
Today is the 23rd, and it will be going up. This video will be going up today, so you guys will probably get it late. But this is from yesterday, so this is just my reaction to it and everything.
Half minutes left in our show today. News broke that the Panthers had found their GM, and they didn't have to look far. And I have reactions that I couldn't fit into 2.5 minutes, so we're back. This is one of the more baffling decisions I can remember in NFL hiring and firing. Dan Morgan is the new GM of the Carolina Panthers. You may remember Dan Morgan as somebody that was in the front office already. I believe he was the assistant general manager for the Carolina Panthers over the last 3 years. You may remember him from his time as a player, where he spent 7 years playing for the Carolina Panthers. Here's the deal.
Lay it on us, man, because right now you're telling me that we're bringing in another former Carolina Panther. Now we're going to treat this one different than how we did the last head coach.
My criticism that I am about to give to this hire is very little to do with Dan Morgan, the person, Dan Morgan, heck, even the executive. It has everything to do with moving on from what disaster you put on the field in 2023 and starting fresh. 2023, we've broken it down on the show before. It's the worst season in franchise history. 2001 was pretty bad. 2019 was pretty bad. In some ways, 2010 was pretty bad. For my money, this was the worst season in franchise history. So when you fire the GM, it's tough to turn around and stay in-house for the hire, for the simple fact of you fired Scott Fitterer to move on from the people that assembled this year's roster.
Exactly. Yeah. This was supposed to be like, man, Sportsology is going to go out there and get us Adam Peters. No, he went to the Commanders. They're going to go out there and get us the Ravens GM. You're going to go out there, or assistant GM. You're going to go get us somebody that really, really knows what they're doing. But personally, this is him cherry picking somebody that was in the previous regime that is going to help cover up all the mistakes. In my opinion, the biggest mistake being going with Bryce Young over CJ Stroud. Obviously, we can have the discussion in the long term, but right now, as it sits, Stroud is elevating talent around him, and Bryce was unable to do that at all. And I don't care what anybody says, Bryce has the potential to be a really, really great quarterback. But in your first year, if you throw 12 touchdowns and 2,800 yards, that's not even Daniel Jones's rookie year. So that's incredibly subpar. And if he, comes out this year and throws 17, 18, 19 touchdowns, doesn't even break 20 touchdowns, then did it really get that much better?
It's funny because I'll use like Adam Gold, who hosts on this network, good friend of the show. As soon as this hire happened, he retweeted the one of the announcements hiring, hey, Dan Morgan's a new GM, and his response was simply, got to rebuild the roster. How ridiculous is it that you would hire somebody who was a part of putting together the roster to rebuild the roster? That's like I painted the walls, and then you hire me to paint over the walls that I painted. It's like, well, I was just the assistant painter the first time. I'm going to a completely new firm. I'm going to a completely new painting organization. I'm not going, try again. Unless you're giving me a discount or something like that, then it's a whole other story.
New paint's the whole deal.
I have the statement from David Tepper in front of me. This is in part. Dan has a thorough knowledge of our football personnel and a clear vision to take us where we all want to go. We know he will attack this opportunity with the same intensity he did as a Panthers player.
I don't know. I can't. I can't believe in Dan Morgan, okay? I can't because of what we just did, like I said before, to our previous coach. First quarterback to throw a touchdown in Frank Reich, but yet we mid-season fire him because he's so bad while not holding the GM accountable, who's the one that actually built the team after the owner vetoed multiple decisions. Like, come on, there's more to this than just like, oh, it's just the coaching. Go out there and get Dave Canales and it'll solve all of our problems. No, in fact, there's a thing that just came out. I can't remember if Rimmer posted it or if it was Joe Person, but whoever posted it was basically stating that last year, you know, who had less plays in motion than any other team last year? It was the Dallas Cowboys. Jesus, it was the Dave Canales run Bucks. So everybody wants motion and wants this to be a little bit different. It's not. It's going to be closer to that Frank Reich offense. And we don't have a Mike Evans. We don't have a Chris Godwin. We don't have a Rashad White to really go out there and do it. Nor do we have that offensive line. We don't have a Tristan Wirfs. So the idea that all of a sudden Canales is going to show up here and all of a sudden Bryce Young is going to be a 29, 32 touchdowns, 9 picks and, almost 5,000 yards. I just don't think that's going to be the case. Now, obviously, there's, a little bit of bias here. I am a little bit of a Frank Reich defender, I will say. I won't necessarily go that I'm a stand for him. I think that he was good, but I also think that the personnel was so bad that no coach could make it better. I was more of mad at Panthers fans, Panthers Twitter, Panthers fan base, because we're sold this idea that we're bringing somebody home. Man, he's a Carolina Panther. We're bringing it back to, the roots of Carolina. And then Tepper starts making these weird decisions, like, again, mid-season firing, telling him to go outside of his circle, causing a coup to happen. Then you hear about the us leaving the previous training facility, it's Wofford College, I believe. I always mess it up. There's that. There's the business deal where he was trying to get, I think it was a new field or a new training facility, and then that whole debacle went down. So it's a whole lot of Tepper issues, little Tepper problems. But yeah, this is not a good hire in my opinion. This is probably one of the worst hires, other than, again, my vehement or my just amazing hatred of Chris Tabor. So
he has a full knowledge of the personnel because he helped choose them. And the first thing I think you need to do is change most of the personnel. I don't care if you know the guy. I care that you want to replace the guy. Right? He knows our offensive line very, very well. I'm like, good. I hope he doesn't know next year's offensive line very, very well, because I hope most of them are different. Oh, he knows our defensive front very, very well. Great. Outside of Brian Burns and Derek Brown, I don't think you need to know the rest of them. Maybe the ones that are still on rookie contracts, because you can salvage some of that. I look at it very simply. I look at this as the Panthers had an opportunity to change the direction of their franchise, which, based on where they've been the last 5 years under David Tepper, they needed to change the direction of their franchise.
Yeah, and the only way to do that is to actually listen to Sportsology and go outside of the circle. He constantly wanted everybody else to go outside, but now he's going to stay in that circle to people that are going to insulate him, and I do not like that from an owner.
It's right when he took over, they're a playoff team. It's been getting worse ever since. Just down and down and down. They had an opportunity to change things. Now Dan Morgan, from most of the reports, is going to have the personnel say, right? So he's the one deciding which players are good, which ones are part of the future, which ones they should target in the draft, which ones they should target in free agency and trades, and they'll bring in somebody else to be the cap analytics guru. I think he could have gotten two outsiders. I think he could have really taken this opportunity to start fresh.
Adam Peters, the dude that the Commanders got, is the dude that should have been a Carolina Panther, period.
I'm not sure I want somebody that's been around this franchise. I'm not sure I want somebody that's been around this roster having a say in what happens to it moving forward. And again, I want to say this with my chest, because it's always tough to criticize the hire of a player who is kind of a franchise legend, right?
Franchise legend. Is he though?
Morgan did play with the Panthers for 7 seasons, right? Morgan was known for his kind of Keekly before Keekly, like heady play or whatever you want to call it. All those things they say about gym rats or whatever. He's good, right?
So was Frank Reich. He was a former Panther, and we did him dirty. So I'm going to stand on the hill that we're going to do Dan Morgan dirty, because the fact that he's a Panther apparently means nothing to David Tepper.
Bunch of tackles in the Super Bowl. I got you. I hear you. No disrespect to him. It was about moving on from last year, right?
Starting fresh.
Imagine if they fired Frank Reich and then hired Frank Reich's right-hand man. It would feel weird, wouldn't it?
Mm-hmm.
It would feel like, I think we were trying to go in a different direction. He was Scott Fitterer's right-hand man for the last 3 years.
And Scott Fitterer was so bad, I made a change.org petition and ran it constantly on the socials linked, man, on roll coverage, on everything like that. Scott Fitterer was trash, man. I'm sorry. I don't care if it was Tepper or whatever. Fitterer needed to grow a backbone, and the fact that we just went and got his lackey is disgusting.
Now, I said this on my initial reaction on the show. The only way this makes any sense is if he had some kind of proof. Like if they have a Slack channel or a Teams or a Google Doc somewhere where, they've made some really bad personnel decisions over the last couple of years. If he has documentation where he was the only one in the room saying, I think this is a bad idea, right? If he was the only one saying, well, maybe we keep DJ Moore so Bryce Young has a number 1 option at wide receiver. If he was the only one saying, maybe we don't trade up for DJ Johnson. If he was the only one saying, I don't think we need Terrace Marshall Jr. I think we might be able to roll with Nico Collins, who was drafted far after him in that draft. And I don't know if he was around how long ago that was. Dan Morgan's.
All reports that I've seen, or at least all the Twitter quote-unquote reports, unsourced and everything like that, is that Dan Morgan was a Stroud guy. So it makes no sense for him to go with Dan Morgan unless he's trying to just, again, keep everything in-house, not let secrets get out and everything like that, which in my opinion would make sense. Dan Morgan as GM, Canales as OC, DC's Evero, special teams as Tabor, and you keep basically the same idea, but yet you throw Fitterer off to the Wolves and just kind of move forwards with essentially the exact same thing you were doing, and Tepper loses no control.
Been there for like 3 years. Unless he has documentation that says, proof that says, somebody backing him up, somebody else that was in the room going, yeah, Dan was standing on the table saying that was a really dumb move. Dan was the only one saying we either need to re-sign Brian Burns or extend Brian Burns or accept the 2 first-round picks we were getting from the Rams in an offer. There's no way we should let this
I couldn't agree more. This whole Brian Burns thing has been handled so poorly.
drag out. And unless they have proof, a witness, a bunch of witnesses, written documentation, something that says all of these little decisions that led to the worst season in Panthers history, Dan Morgan was vehemently opposed of those little decisions. I don't know what we're doing here.
Yeah.
Because if he's co-signing some of these decisions, that's enough to say, Dan, we love you. I would even be open to maybe keeping him as some kind of lieutenant role to whoever the next, leaders of the franchise are, because he is somebody that means something to the Panthers. But rolling with the same, it's just, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't. And this is pretty stream of consciousness. I mean, obviously we've been doing a lot of, talk about who the GM is going to be, who the head coach is going to be. When there's this many problems on the tip of my tongue, this news broke 17 minutes ago.
Yeah.
And I've been talking here on this pod for 5, 6, 7, 8 of them. This is a really tough look. Dennis, what am I missing?
I think you're pretty spot on this. I mean, so when things are a dumpster fire, you're going to promote the understudies? That's the thing I don't get. I mean, unless on 90% of the decisions that were made by Scott Fitterer as a general manager, Dan Morgan is like, I don't like this, I don't like this, I don't like this. And if David Tepper was hearing that, but Tepper was backing up Fitterer, and he's like, well, okay, you said this is the reason why they're wrong. Okay, I don't know. I
Okay,
I don't get it. I just don't get it.
Let's put on our tinfoil hats quickly here.
Okay.
Could this be David Tepper knows I don't want to say Dan Morgan owes him now, but Dan Morgan listens, if that makes any It's obvious David Tepper wants a lot of control over this franchise, right? The impatience, the meddling that we've heard and it has been reported a bunch over the last.
Yeah, has been reported a ton by Diana Rossini and Joe Person. Shout out to them on Twitter, X, and all the great work they've done. Their Hunger Games article, which I actually referenced right down there. It's been bad. It's been a tough time being a Carolina Panthers fan.
Last few years. If he's looking for a yes man, it's easier to know if you have one if they're already in the building than to hire someone else and just think, oh, I can get them to do what I want.
Yeah.
Maybe he just knows Dan Morgan is somebody that, can handle the day-to-day, the waiver and all that sort of stuff, and he'll come down to my office and I'll tell him what to do with the first-round picks, and I'll tell him what to do with Brian Burns, and I'll tell him what to do with the high-leverage fun decisions that are, it's like I get to play fantasy football, and he will handle, making sure our practice squad is up to date and making sure we have a punt returner, every single week. Maybe this was the easiest way for David Tepper to get everything he wants, which I would guess is not everything that's best for the franchise. But
I agree with you 100%.
That's a little bit more tinfoil hat. We'll talk about it on Tuesday's show with Ton on the Drive, 99.9 The Fan at 3 o'clock. Hope to see you there so you can hear us, I guess would be the way to put that. Until then, have a great night, everybody. Panthers fans, stay strong out there.
Yeah, man, I'm definitely going to try and stay strong. Being a Panthers fan is a full-time job with all the craziness that's happened with Tepper, with the backstabbing, the Hunger Games, the coup, just everything going on, the poor decision-making, the poor front office, contracts and the whole nine. And the situation we currently sit ourselves in is because of David Tepper, is because of Fitterer. But again, I'm not going to get away from Tepper. You get the culpability in this. I also don't like that you're getting your wife involved, but that's for a whole separate video. Regardless, my name is Nick. This has been Roll Coverage. Subscribe to the socials below, and you have a great rest of the day. Peace.